سوف يقول مولانا وسيدنا أبو القاسم حجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي.
ألا يا أهل العالم إن جدي الحسين قتلوه عطشانا.
O people of the world, indeed, my grandfather Hussein was killed while he was thirsty.
Imam al-Mahdi, may God hasten his reappearance, himself weeps for the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein's thirst. As it is told in a beautiful story, one day in the sacred courtyard of the shrine of Abu Abdullah, peace be upon him, while Sheikh Abd-al-Zahra al-Kaabi was reciting a poem mourning the thirst of Imam al-Hussein, an unknown Sayyid began to weep intensely upon hearing those verses. Sheikh Abd-al-Zahra al-Kaabi, a well-known preacher, poet, and scholar from Karbala, became known in recent decades as one of the most famous reciters of the Maqtal among Shiite Muslims. For years, his warm and sorrowful voice narrated the sufferings of the al-Bayt, a voice that, when recounting their tragedies, carried many hearts with it to Karbala. It is said that Sheikh Abd-al-Zahra was born on the anniversary of the birth of Lady Fatimah al-Zahra, peace be upon her. For this reason, his father named him Abd-al-Zahra, meaning the servant of Zahra. And remarkably, the end of his life was also tied to her name and memory. It is said that he passed away on the anniversary of her martyrdom. In one of his memories, Sheikh Abd-al-Zahra al-Kaabi relates this extraordinary event.
One afternoon, I entered the sacred courtyard of Imam Hussain. The shrine's atmosphere was calm, and pilgrims were walking around the courtyard. In front of one of the rooms of the noble courtyard, a man was selling religious books. I had known him from the past. When he saw me, he called out and said,
"I have a book that might be useful to you. It contains poems worthy of your voice. But the price of this book is not money. I only ask that you read those poems for me, just once."
I took the book. When I opened it, I came across the famous poem of Ibn Arandas, al-Hilli. This poem was the very lost treasure I had been searching for a long time. I held the book and began to read the verses. At that moment, I suddenly noticed an Arab Sayyid standing before me. He was listening to the poems in deep silence, and tears were flowing from his eyes. I continued reading the poem until I reached this verse.
حسين بكربلاء وفي كل عضو من أنامله بحر وفي كل عضو من أنامله بحر.
How is it that Hussein is killed thirsty in Karbala, while in every one of his fingertips oceans of greatness and honor are hidden? Then I read the next verses.
ووالد الساقي على الحوض في غد وفاطمة ماء الفرات لا محروم وفاطمة ماء الفرات لا محروم.
While his father, on the day of resurrection, is the pourer at the pool of Kawthar. and the flowing water of Furat is the dowry of his mother, Fatimah.
فما لهف نفسي للحسين وما جنى عليه غدات الطف في حرب الجمهور.
How my soul grieves for Hussein and for the atrocities Shimr committed against him on the day of Ashura at Karbala. When that noble Sayyid heard these verses, his weeping intensified. He turned toward the holy shrine of Imam al-Hussain and repeated that same verse multiple times. He wept as if a mother had lost her young son. The sound of his crying filled the courtyard, and tears poured uncontrollably from his eyes. Seeing his state, I was deeply affected and read the poem to the end. But as soon as the recitation of the poems ended, I raised my head and no longer saw that noble Sayyid. I quickly stood up and left the courtyard. I looked around, hoping to see him once more. I searched everywhere, but there was no sign of him. I asked everyone, but no one had seen him. It was as if in a single moment he had vanished from before my eyes. At that moment, I became certain that the unknown Sayyid was none other than Imam al-Mahdi. May God hasten his reappearance. An Imam who was shedding such tears for the tragedy of his oppressed grandfather, Imam al-Hussain.
Allama Amini mentions a thought-provoking point regarding the famous poem of Ibn Arandas. He writes, "It is famous among our companions and friends that whenever this poem is read in a gathering, the Imam Zaman, the Imam whose reappearance we await, becomes present in that gathering. And today, it is this Imam of ours, Baqiyatullah al-A'zam, Imam al-Zaman, may God hasten his reappearance, who mourns day and night for the tragedy of his lonely grandfather, Aba Abdullah al-Hussain, and weeps blood instead of tears. As he says in Ziyarat al-Nakhiyat al-Muqaddasa,
لأندبنك صباحا ومساء ولأبكين لك بدل الدموع دماء